Hi, I'm Danny, and today I have a wrap up for you. First, I finished up Butter and Smoke and Bone, and the beginning was very strong. I was honestly expecting to give this a 4-star rating, but towards the end, like just after the ballerina performance, it just started going downhill for me. So I ended up giving this a 3-star rating, and I'm not sure at this point whether or not I will continue. So this is the latest book in Char's adventures in not only trying to build herself a nest, but also survive against all the other vampire queens who apparently want her to fail because they think since she's such a new queen that she will be easy to not only manipulate and take out, and Char has proved absolutely that she is not an easy person to take down. She has already made an enemy of one of the older queens and has done a few other things, but I definitely recommend this if you're looking for a very quick, fun vampire read. Then I definitely recommend this one. Oh, and be warned, this is labeled in erotica. It's not 100% about sex, but there are sex throughout these books, so be warned. Next, I read Alex and Ada Volume 2, and this was about the same as book 1, although Ada's starting to not only grow her own personality and explore the world, and her and Alex's relationship does hit a bit of a bump, but they end up smoothing it out in the end, and I liked it. Not sure when I'll pick up Volume 3. It's definitely not something I need to pick up right away, but it's something I might pick up in the future. Next, I read Goddess of the Sea by P.C. Cass. This is actually technically the first book in her Goddess series. I actually started with Goddess of Spring, which is book 2, and I have continued on with the series. So of course, reading this one, I thought, okay, is the series going downhill or something? Or am I just not feeling this? But it actually turns out the series has gone up from this one, because this one I really did not like too much, but I love the rest of the books. But this is kind of a retelling of The Little Mermaid. It starts off with a fighter pilot named Cece, and she has been in the Air Force since she was 18. But of course, Cece being in the Air Force, she is afraid of flying. Which, how do you join the Air Force if you're afraid of flying, first of all? But she is, she finds this, this book of spells, I want to say, and she does one on the night of a full moon, and it's supposed to like open her horizons and bring love towards her. So basically, like, I guess you could say kind of a love spell. And the next day she goes off to her next assignment, and the plane actually ends up crashing, and that night she did the spell. Sorry, I left my window open, and it would just take too much to go over there and close it because I have to get past the camera and the bed and everything, so sorry if the noise keeps popping in and out. So she dreams about this mer boy and this mer girl that the very night she does the spell before she goes off to her next mission, and when her plane crashes into the water, she ends up seeing the mermaid, and she actually ends up switching bodies with her, and from there a whole bunch of other issues arise. One, because that very mermaid who took her body and who she switched bodies with has a half-brother, I believe he's a half-brother, named Sarkeesian, and he is absolutely obsessed with marrying her and getting her into his bed, and that is the first thing that Cece encounters that is a problem, because he attempts to force her into his bed whether she wants to be there or not. And then the story just takes off from there. There is a point in this one, as I said, it's a Little Mermaid retelling, so of course Cece ends up getting legs from a goddess after she becomes the mermaid, and she ends up running into this knight, and the only way Cece gets to keep her legs if she can get a mortal man to fall in love with her. And I think she's supposed to fall in love with him too, not necessarily has to, but of course that's what Cece is hoping for. And she ends up landing in this monastery under the guise that she is a shipwrecked princess, and she ends up at a monastery with the most ugly souled man you could ever possibly imagine. Not the guy who ends up falling for her, but he's like the mentor of the knight who saved her, who is the guy Cece's trying to get to fall in love with her so she can keep her legs. But the priest is not only, I think that he might have an interest in the knight, but of course he has told his entire congregation and the knight that anything that is beautiful or sexual is evil. So of course the knight, believing she's beautiful, somehow believes that somehow, while she might be innocent, she could be evil, and a whole bunch of issues arise from there, especially with this priest, because they constantly butt heads all the time. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that while she is trying to get the knight to fall for her on land, she has already somewhat given her heart to a merman that she met in the water, who actually turned out to be the mermaids whose body she's in. It was her playmate as when they were little kids, so like her best friend. And of course he knows instantly when he sees Cece that it's not her, that's not the right person in the body, but he's completely fine with that, because while he's always thought Undine, that was the mermaid's name, while he's always thought Undine was beautiful, she was very, very shallow, and so he absolutely believes that he could find happiness with Cece. And the ending, a small part of me expected it, but a bigger part of me was kind of surprised that it happened. I gave this a 2-star rating, maybe a 2.5, but still a 2-star rating. But I am going to continue on with this series because, as I said, this is the first book, and I've loved all 3 other books that I've read from this series. I know that this series has definitely gone up, but I will be continuing on with this series, even if the first book, technically the 4th that I've read in the series, sucked. Next I read Never Kiss an Outlaw by Nicole Snow, and this is about a girl named Cora who comes home from work one day only to find that her father is holding a gun to his head while surrounded by motorcycle bikers who are in this notorious club of their state called the Deadly Pistols. And of course she's believing that they are somehow threatening him and that he's going to kill himself, but it actually turns out that he's ready to commit suicide because A, he's dying of, I believe it was cancer, and B, he actually owes a whole bunch of money to another biker club from another state, and if he can't pay, he knows that they will most likely take his daughter as their payment. So he has gotten his old best friend, his old childhood friend, who is now the president of the Deadly Pistols, and made him promise that he will protect Cora somehow, some way, and that he will get her safe. A whole bunch of things happen from here, but Cora and Firefly? I think it was Fireball. Yeah, Fireball. No, Firefly. I can't remember. What is his name? Fireball or Firefly? So his name is Firefly. So Firefly and Cora butt heads a lot in the beginning, which was kind of funny, especially to see how they handled each other, but in the end they actually end up getting together, and it's very sweet. I gave this a 3-star rating. Next I read Blood Song by Kat Adams. This is about a girl who is a bodyguard, I guess you could say, and in this world everyone knows about vampires, werewolves, ghosts, all those things. They exist in this world, everybody knows about them. So she is a bodyguard specializing in the paranormal because she went to some sort of college. I can't remember the name of the college's name, and she learned all the things that could repel and hold off these things other than what the average person knows. While she's on a job, they are getting their client out because there's something dangerous happening in the club bar they were in, and they actually ended up getting cornered in an alley with a whole bunch of vampires. Everybody dies but Kat. They believe she's dead at first, and when they bring her to the college so the scientists can examine their bodies and try and figure out what happened, Kat ends up waking up, and she is what is known as an abomination. It is when a vampire attempts to change somebody, but for some reason, whether because they did not finish completing the ritual, like exchanging blood and saying some sort of magical words over them, or whether because something in the person just didn't accept all of the vampire abilities, they are known as abominations. So Kat has white hair and white skin, and she has a hunger for blood, but it doesn't necessarily have to be blood. It can be anything really. She just has to keep herself fed, though every once in a while they do recommend that she has a supply of blood to like fight off the blood craving so that she doesn't just suck somebody dry. And it is revealed later towards the end of this book why she did not become a vampire and why she became an abomination. And I was actually right about my theory with this. In the story, she not only has to try and figure out what happened to her, but why it happened to her, who set up the trap that got all the people in their group killed. It was okay. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. I do think I will continue on with the series at a later date, but definitely not immediately, because I definitely want to see what led up to the synopsis I read in book 5. I gave this a 3-star rating. Next, I read Death and Night by Roshani Chachki. This is the author of the Star-Touched Queen, and this is a novella explaining how Maya and what was the Raja's name? So this is the story explaining how Amar and Maya met in Maya's original life before she was reincarnated. And I thought it was very sweet how she kind of broke down his defenses from how he wanted a wife, but he did not want to be in love with that wife or ever share the bed with that wife, and how she slowly broke him down by telling him, nope, it's not gonna happen, nope, I refuse, nope, nope. So they started off as friends, and it was very sweet and very cute, and I know I will probably reread this sometime in the future. Next, I read the entire Finishing School series by Gail Character. The first book being Etiquette and Espionage. This is about Sophronia, a 13, I want to say is how she, no, sorry, 14. 14-year-old girl who cannot stop getting into mischief, and her parents don't know what to do with her. So one of her mother's friends named Mrs. Barnacle Goose recommends Sophronia for this finishing school. Sophronia packs her thing, goes away expecting to be bored to tears with etiquette and what to wear with this or how to flirt like that, only to get to the school and find out that it is not an average school for ladies. It is a school that teaches you not only etiquette but espionage. Sophronia learns there not only how to curtsy correctly and how to sip her tea and how to flirt like this, but also how to decapitate a person, how to poison a person, and how to find out people's secrets without them even knowing they're giving them to you. So it is a very fun, fast-paced book, and I think my original time I gave this a 4-star rating. This time I gave it more of a 3-star. I still enjoyed it, just since I knew it was coming, I enjoyed it just a little less because I have read this one before. Next is Curtsies and Conspiracies. This continues on with Sophronia's adventures of her still learning how to poison people, how to kill people this way and that way, and learning the different etiquette that is also not only with humans but also supernaturals, because in this world there are supernaturals. In the first book you find out Sophronia has a vampire teacher and a werewolf teacher, and of course these creatures are throughout society as well. Everybody knows about them. They even help England win some sort of war. Oh, and also this is a steampunk novel. I keep forgetting to mention that. This is a steampunk novel. What would have happened if electricity didn't happen the way it is now in our world? What if it didn't work out? So like things like, what if the telegraph haven't worked and all this stuff. So of course there are robots in this one, but they're not like the science fiction robots that we know. They're, well, steampunky. And this was my first steampunk novel, and I expected to absolutely dislike it, but actually I really ended up loving it. Also, this is the prequel to the Parasol Protectorate series. I haven't started that one yet. I actually didn't even know this was a prequel. It just looked a little more my speed than the Parasol books, because this is YA and the Parasol are adult, but I do plan to start those in the future because I like this series so much. And after the first book continues on with Sophronia's adventures in Curtsies and Conspiracies. As I said, this continues on with Sophronia's adventures in etiquette and espionage, learning how to be a spy in this way and that, and also having to pass this like mid-final test, I want to say, because it's kind of like a test of everything she's learned in book 1 and so far in book 2, but it happens towards the beginning in book 2, so I guess you could say mostly in book 1. And I believe I gave this one also a 3-star rating. It was still fun, but I'd also read this one before too. So what Sophronia learns about this crystalline valve in book 1 continues on in book 2 as she starts to figure out more and more about it and what it's used for and whom I wanted and what they would use it for. So all these different things doing with, well, espionage. Sophronia is still going through, and of course the teachers are keeping a better eye on her now because they realize that she actually knows more than she lets on. Next I read Mask of Shadows by Lindsay Mailer. I've actually done a non-spoiler review on this book, so if you would like to see that, I will link it in the description below. This is about a gender fluid character named Saul. Saul is neither a boy nor a girl. Saul is whatever Saul feels like that day. So if Saul is in a dress, then Saul feels like a girl. If Saul is in a tunic, then Saul is a boy. And I know there's one character in this book who annoys the hell out of Saul by constantly, purposely mixing up Saul's gender for the day. This is about a world where there is a ruling queen who obliterated magic and got rid of these really evil monsters called the Shadows. And in doing so, she also set up her own court. And she has these 4 assassins who are called her left hand, who are each named after a ring that she wears on her left hand: onyx, opal, amethyst, and ruby. During the beginning of this book, you find out that the opal has died, and so the queen has set out a competition to find herself a new opal. And of course, Saul, being a trained thief and who absolutely has no doubt that Saul could kill another person if she had to, she gets the price for entering the competition, which is either a recommendation or evidence that you have killed or bring in someone who is wanted by the Empire. So of course she brings in her current boss's hand, who, well, of course she doesn't want to drag his body across country, so she kills him, chops off his hand, and brings it with her to the competition as her voucher. She enters and she is given a number. She is known as 23, and she enters the competition of assassins. And when I first read about this, I was kind of thinking like Throne of Glass, but unlike Throne of Glass, they are allowed to kill each other in this competition. In Throne of Glass, it was not supposed to be allowed, even though it still did happen. This one, it's absolutely allowed. They tell them, okay, so the competition is starting. Let's see how many of you show up for breakfast. But it was very good. I really liked it. And even though I only gave this a 3-star rating, I absolutely have every intention on continuing. I believe at this point, at the time I'm filming this, the next book comes out in 2 days from now. And while I don't plan to buy it, I do plan to listen to it on audiobook, because the store where I bought this, I think it had been a month that this was out before they actually got it in. So I have no doubt it'll probably take about just as long. But I really like this one. I really like Saul, and I really like Saul's love interest. And it's probably not who you're expecting. So I definitely recommend this if you're looking for a good assassin book with an LGBTQ twist to it. Next I read Knocked Up by the Dawn by Penelope Bloom. You could figure out what this one is just by the title. It's about a girl who sleeps with a guy. She gets pregnant. They end up running to each other at the hospital just after she finds out that she's pregnant. And of course, he's there as a potential donor. He sees the Pregnancy in Me pamphlet that she's holding, and he instantly knows that she's pregnant. And instead of questioning, could it be mine, he automatically marches up to her, says you're pregnant, and then drags her out of the hospital so that they can talk. And they get into a relationship, not only of her trying to understand his lifestyle more, because he is a dom. She's kind of pretty much a vanilla girl, so she's never, except for the time they slept together, experienced anything like that. So it's her adjusting to his lifestyle, him trying to get her to wear his collar, kind of like ownership, I guess you could say, but not ownership in a bad way, but it's a very good way. He wants to treasure her and spoil her and all these other things and make a life with her. But the collar is not a mandatory. He says that he would like her to wear it, but she can refuse it and they will still be together. It's fine. But he really kind of wants her to have his collar. But it was a very cute, sweet, and sexy book. I gave this one a 3-star rating. Next, I read Waistcoats and Weaponry by Gil Carriger. This is the 3rd book in the Finishing School series, and do you see the bladed fan that she's holding? I want that bladed fan. It is absolutely awesome the way Sophronia uses it in it. This is, as I said, the 3rd book, so their still learning about etiquette and espionage, but they've learned poisoning and all that, so they're moving up in their education, and they're learning like secret messages and how to signal each other from across the room. You know, like if I were to touch my cheek and tap 3 times, then it means help me, I can't not get away from this guy, things like that. And they're taught how to flirt and work their way up into high society, and then also encouraged to try and find themselves patrons. So patrons kind of like an employer, I guess. While you are in society, they may ask you to find this out, or get this for me, or try and manipulate this person into doing this for them, and they will supply you with anything you could possibly need, plus money that for doing the job. So Sophronia has 3 potential patrons in the beginning of by the middle point of this book, and by the end of it she has 1, because she makes an agreement with the Duin, which is the werewolf on the Queen of England's Shadow Council. If he turns her friend into a werewolf to save his life, then she will be in servitude to him, but not like a servant for the rest of her life, but like for a certain amount of years. So she would work for him for 5 to 10 years, and if he turned her friend into a werewolf, or at least tried, because in this series it's not always a guarantee just because a supernatural bites you that you will become a supernatural. It's like a very small percentage. Vampires do it multiple times a year, and they may only get like 10 people turned in a century. So it's a very small percentage that actually get it. But of course, this person, the Duin, bites this person, and he does become a werewolf. And that continues on to Manners and Mutiny, the last book in the Finishing School series. And we see her werewolf friend come back in. We see them start to kind of develop a relationship that started kind of brewing in book 3. But of course, not only are they different stations and classes, but he's now a werewolf. So even if it was possible before, not only is he lower class born, black, and now a werewolf, there's no possible way her parents would ever condone it. And as the book goes on, you see the mystery that started in book 1, built up in book 2, hit its peak in book 3, and now is exploding in book 4, come to its conclusion, and it was a fantastic finish. I gave this a 4-star rating because the romance was perfect. Seeing Soap trying to convince her that they could be together, her say no, absolutely not, him say he's going to change her mind, and her say I'll bet you can't, and him just absolutely be determined to do it. It was fantastic. And seeing how this whole mystery wraps up, and we find out that one of the teachers is not what we expect her to be either. It was absolutely fantastic. I gave this a 4-star rating, and I want to buy the series now. I need it so that I can reread it at a future date. Well, that is my wrap up for the month, and I will see you guys next time.